Even bring her a sticker.
All
I was
right,
talking about it this morning.
okay.
You guys are good to go. Perfect.
It's a workshop.
Workshop.
We can still pledge it.
Monday, April 22nd, workshop. Let's go.
All right, let's go.
All right, where do we begin? Anybody want to jump in here first, or?
I don't really have.
Give a presentation.
Jeff?
Well, thank you for having me come down. I'm Don Garish. I work for Eaton Peabody Consulting Firm, and I was asked to take a look at your transformation from your former government, which was really town meeting and select board with, I think it was a clerk. Was there a clerk with the select board? You went through a change, approved the new town charter and approved a town manager form. And so I was asked to take a look at it, see how it's working, maybe make some suggestions to you how you might want to continue to improve and do work on it. So, so first of all, I want to thank each one of you. I did a telephone conversation with each one of you. I appreciate the time you took to talk to me, and with the town manager, we had a nice conversation, and she sent me a lot of the materials that that you have. And so I did a report, but I didn't send it ahead of time because I'm like to discuss what I'm going to say ahead of time. You can read it. I've got other material here for you that I think may help you as you get a copy of it here. as you do your work. So if anyone doesn't know my background, I'm a retired Maine manager. I had 38 years in the profession, number of communities. I was a tax assessor at one time, assistant manager in Brunswick for a couple of years, and I went to Auburn for 3 years as an assistant manager. And then I was in Gorham for 10 years as their town manager, and then went to Brunswick, and I was there 20 years and retired. Retired in December 2009. For the last 14 years, I've worked for Eaton Peabody Consulting Group, and I do a lot of work. One of my primary things, I help communities hire managers. I've done maybe 70 of those over the last 14 years, and I've got 3 going on right now that I'm working on. I do interim work. I've been in small communities, large communities, South Portland, Auburn. I've been in Wiscasset and Damariscotta and Poland and a number of communities in terms of being interim and helping them through the process of hiring a new manager. And I also do work with elected officials and managers. I did it through MMA, and I do it privately with communities, and talk about roles and responsibilities and how to better work together to make this form of government work. So that's a little bit my background, so people watching or listening know about that. So I'm going to start off by saying I watched some of your meetings. I read your new charter. I originally read your old personnel policy, and I said, "Whoa, we need to make a change in that." And then found out that you were working on that, and I've looked at your new one, and I think I want to compliment you. The new personnel policy is one of the best I've seen. It really is in detail. It really,
We're gonna
Yeah.
put it where it belongs
Yeah.
over here with these 2 ladies.
well, as we go through this evening, there's a theme in my philosophy about managing a community and how it all works and how you get information for your purposes, for the manager, for the employees, and for the public. And I'm a firm believer in having processes and policies, because that lays out for everybody's information how things are supposed to work and how they're going to work. Now, if people disagree with that, you may have to change it, but at least the processes are there. So I want to congratulate you on that, because I think you've done a good job. And I couldn't find out, did you pass your personnel policy
Yes.
the other night? Yeah.
A week ago.
Yeah.
All right.
I saw that you had it on your agenda, and you were going to work on it. So first thing I'm going to start out is with this little document and it says town manager, but this is just a visual of the roles and responsibilities of elected officials when you have a town manager. And it kind of, it shows you that part of the whole process, the council has, or select board has more authority. And then as you move down to different categories, the manager has some more responsibilities. So it just kind of shows you that, talk about the goals and direction of the communities. That's yours. That's the elected officials and town meeting. I understand town meeting's involved, but this is just to give you an idea of your roles. And the manager's role is to provide information to you. You take appropriate action. You do have the information to do it. So as you move down it, then you talk about policy, and you still have to deal with policy and amend and make decisions on ordinances. The manager's role is to do the background work, give you the information, make sure, and make recommendations. You have a professional, so you want that person to make recommendations. And as you move down, you got constituents issues, and that kind of rests both with the elected officials and the manager. Some of the complaints will come to you, some of them will come to the town manager. So you need to work together, and you need to communicate so everybody knows what's going on. So that kind of is an even role there. But then as you get down further in this graph, you have oversight broadly to make sure everything is accomplished, but then you give authority to the manager to establish procedures, manage the resources, make sure the budget's carried on, and carry out the decisions. So that role falls more with management. You still have oversight. And the one I will tell you, in my 45 years now I've done this, is how the two bodies sometimes get conflicted with personnel issues. And that is one of the areas I'm going to talk about more, but that's one area that really has to be very well clarified so that everybody understands the elected body's role and the manager's role. I just give this to you so you can maybe put it away and just think about it as you're doing your work. And I made copies, extra copies for everybody, the public, if they want to see it. So that's where I wanted to start, just to kind of look at that. The next thing I want to talk about is, in talking to all of you and the manager, you had a few bumps in the road. I put it in my report, bumps in the road. I thought was a good way to put it, as you transitioned. And I think you did a good job in the transition, but I think there could have been more work to make sure everybody understands what the roles were. You were making a major change. The board did a lot of the personnel work. I talked to some of you. You handled personnel issues, or a couple of you, and oversaw them. In your old personnel policy, you did the evaluations of the staff. And as I remember, I read it, and that was fine. But with the new manager form, that then rests with the manager. And so for the employees' benefit, and I know you did new job descriptions too. Excellent. That everybody has a good job description. And the manager's job description I read was very good, was very clear. And I think that's important. But in the end, there were still some bumps in the road. So I think that what I'm here to tell you is I have some ideas of maybe how to continue a good process, how to work together, and how to bring the public, staff, and boards and commissions, because I liked your, in the back of your charter is those two diagrams showing the chain of command, or the organizational chart. And then you had your boards and commissions. And you've got more boards and commissions than I've ever seen, but I won't get into that. You have a lot, and that's okay. That's what you want to do. But you need to make sure that everybody can understand what their roles are. And one of the things I'm going to recommend to you is a lot of your information, and your code of ethics. I read your code of ethics. I thought that was very good, but it's all over the place. It's in different parts of your documents. One of the things I'm going to recommend to you is a document that maybe puts it all together so it's easy to find for the public, for you. And I'm going to give you a copy of the town of Raymond's. Now, just give these to you. I'm always one that tries to give something to look at and to read, and yeah. Now, this may be too much. It may be way too much than you want, but you don't need to reinvent the wheel. And it takes some of the information from your charter, takes some from your personnel policy, takes some other information about how you run your select board meetings, and you put it in one document. And and I can get a copy of this, you can put it on your web page when you adopt something. But to me, it's communication and information to give out so everybody understands this is how it's going to work. This is who's in charge. This is, you know, what you do and how the select board does their work. So I made extra copies of those. So that's one thing that I think is important. You can read them, and it's a lot. And
Seating assignments.
yeah, you read that. There'll be a test next week when I come back down.
I don't think so.
The city of Saco has a document that is like this, way too much detail, in my opinion. But it goes into everything that could happen, will happen, and how it works. I don't think you need that, but I think having some basic information for everybody to understand, I think is real positive. I've got another recommendation for you. This is an easier one. Many communities, or most communities, have a public session to start your meetings. The public can come in and speak. Most of the time that is for items that are not on the agenda. And I was looking through your documents and I couldn't find anything that laid out what's the policy? What do you expect of the public? What don't you expect of the public? And I thought this document was very good. This is from the town of Wells. And it talks about the importance to have that time and, you know, encourages people to come in and even criticizing if they like. But it also lays out some areas that the public is not to be discussing. And I think this will help everybody. And most communities post it at their meetings, so people understand what is expected and what isn't expected. So that's something that I think you might want to think about. They have, if you read it, they have two public sessions, one at the beginning of the meeting and one at the end of the meeting. A lot of communities have gone away from that and really have it just one. And you have 5 minutes, they have 3. That whatever the time doesn't make any difference, but it's more having a policy that allows everyone to understand how this is going to work and make sure, you know, that we follow it. And there's leeway in that. I mean, it's not hard and fast that people want to speak a little longer. You can allow that. And I think flexibility is always important. But I also believe you're here at a meeting and you have business to do and you need to take care of that business. Let the public speak, but to hold up everybody else that comes for certain items, there's trying to balance to listen to the public. Another issue that I didn't put on there, but I would suggest to you is sometimes at meetings, people raise questions or say things. And for the elected officials to get into a debate with someone speaking takes time. And I'm not sure that's the best productive way of doing it. Many communities have designated to the manager maybe, or just if people raise an issue and I'll say this sometimes what people say during these meetings isn't correct. That happens. And to try to get into an argument doesn't help things. And many communities take notes and at the next meeting say, well, someone spoke to this. This is what we found out about it, so that it comes back out publicly to everybody that we looked at it and this is what we found. I know city of South Portland does it. Other communities do it, and it just makes things work better and the correct information gets out. the issue with that is that maybe at the next meeting, someone else comes in and you have that same debate, but it's important, I think, as elected officials to be able to communicate and communicate correctly. I think that's important. On this document, and in the state law, and I brought copies of the state law because you're unique for a small community to have a charter and on your form of government. Most communities your size just go by the state law when they have a manager, select board, town meeting form. And the state law is very specific. And you, in the job description, I think, highlight the state statutes, that the manager follows the state statutes. But there's a section in the state law that I would highly recommend that you adopt. And let me just read it. It's my third, if you look at that document I gave you, it's the third recommendation. And this is from the state law. Let me read it. The select board shall deal with the administrative services solely through the town manager and may not give orders to any subordinate of the manager, either publicly or privately. This does not prevent the select board from appointing committees or commissions of its own members or citizens to conduct investigations into the conduct of any official or department or any matter relating to the welfare of the town. I mentioned it earlier to you that there are roles that the manager has and that's their roles. I would say adopt this someplace in your policies. And I'm sure you all understand that role and how it works, but this is just a reminder for new people coming in and the public. This is how it works. Because I've been to a number of communities where I had to come in and do work where it wasn't happening. And employees can only have one boss. They can't have two bosses. They can't believe you're their boss and the manager is their boss. It's a disruption in the organization. It's a disruption of how information flows. Doesn't mean you can't talk to employees. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. But just if employees think they're being asked to do something by an elected official, it could cause some problems. So I'm sure you all don't do that. But I just think that if you have something in your documents that says that, you're better off for doing that. If you adopt any of your documents, any of them, every year when there's an election and there are new elected officials coming in, even if you have old staying on, have a meeting and review all your documents. And everybody reads them. Everybody agrees that's what they're going to follow. It's just that continuity so there's no surprises in terms of this is how we're going to do X, Y, and Z, or this is whose responsibility it is. So I would recommend that. I know you do evaluations, or you will or do evaluation of your manager. In many communities, I can say this, that has not been done, or it's done haphazardly or not with everybody involved. And just make sure you do that, because this is an opportunity for you to let the manager know how good a job they're doing, areas of concern, setting priorities. And it also gives the manager to give you feedback on issues that they may have. And so that is just something that I would highly suggest. Victoria says, what's the major issue you're going to tell us tonight about how this all works? And number 6, my recommendation for this form of government to be successful is that honest and timely communications be maintained by all, the select board and the town manager, and there is transparency and open communication with the public.
Totally agree.
Communication and transparency with the public and amongst yourselves is as critical as anything that you do to make it work. And the other thing I would say to you is when there is an issue, deal with it, talk about it, and do it professionally, do it the right way. But you can't let things fester because in the end, it doesn't help the organization at all. Number 7 was just my philosophy about writing policies and procedures and making sure that everybody understands them. Not everyone's going to agree with them. And sometimes elected officials pass something on a 3-2 vote or a 4-1 vote, or it's unanimous. But those are the rules you have and the policies you have. And so if you look at them each year and you want to make changes in it, do it, because it sets the stage for the work that you do every year. And it's half the battle. It's half the battle of making sure things work well. You may have political differences, but you can deal with them if everyone understands what the policies are and how they do work. So it sounds simple sometimes, but it means a lot of work. And I can't emphasize enough how impressed I've been with your thought process of doing all these things that you've done. Code of ethics. A lot of communities don't have a code of ethics. I think that's fairly important for you, for your boards, for your employees. Your personnel ordinance, the new one, I didn't see anything that I could think of or that you didn't have in it. And so that's real positive for you. Your charter is a little wonky, but that's me because I read charters all the time. This isn't a criticism. It's just there's a lot more detail in your charter that if things change, you have to have a charter review to change them. Many charters give general, and there's some specifics, but many give general authority or this is the way it's going to be, but not as specific as yours. Again, not a criticism, but there was a section about setting up each one of your committees and your structure within your organization.
Sources.
Yes.
Yep.
And so I know you have to have a review, every 10 years? Yeah. I would just say in the future, think about those things that need to be in the charter. I agree. But giving some authority either through town meeting or select board to make changes, and many communities put that in their charter that these may be changed by a vote of the town meeting. Because doing a charter commission or even changes in the charter, doing a commission is a lot of work because it's all set up with a different structure. You can do some minor changes, but you have to have a vote each year on those. So that's my review of your charter. Again, it was fine. And for a community, you really spell out what you want, how you want it to be done. And I think you need to think about being so specific in how things are done, because it sometimes can cause future problems. All in all, I want to say I've been impressed with what I've seen. I was impressed when I talked with all of you. You're all thinking about how to make this work better here. I'm impressed how you're all thinking about how you communicate with each other, because that's critical. Some boards don't talk. You seem to have been talking. You seem to have been working through this. I think your manager has done a good job. If she's written these policies, I'd give her an A+ for those, because those are just excellent with the processes that I've seen out there.
It's all her.
It's all her. Well, we'll give her credit for that. And
And Jeanette, yes.
yeah, and Jeanette, yeah.
It's okay.
Team effort. Team effort over there.
And so that's what I have to say. I think, again, you're on the right track. You're on the right track, and continue what you do and continue communication. I've talked a lot. hope I've helped a little bit. I'll answer any of your questions from my experience, from the work I do. But again, I think you're there, but you just need to take a few more steps to keep it going. And again, I'm repeating myself, continually look at what you do. Continually to do it, because that's the only way you're going to improve and listen to the public. The public may not like this or like that, but you talk about it and you make changes. So any questions I can answer? Anything that strikes you as saying, oh, Don, that doesn't make sense?
I
Yeah,
don't have any specific questions, but I do feel like this was a good thing to do. We all talked about to do it. But when I think about where we started at the end of last June, when Amber and I got sworn in and we had a town manager, from where we were then to where we are now is night and day, I think. And so anybody can feel free to speak up and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking at it from my own perspective. I feel like we communicate better. I feel like we respect each other more. I feel like we talk things through. You had just said that it seems like we communicate. When we communicate is at meetings. I don't talk to these people that much outside of here all that much. And if I do, it's like, hey, how you doing? How's the kids? Whatever. But so it's just done openly, open communication, being transparent. I feel like that we are headed in the right direction that way.
let me emphasize one other thing, sorry, is that you as the elected body need to support and give information of the role of the manager so the public sees it from you folks.
I was just gonna go there.
That it has to be that continual discussion, and when there are issues, well, the town manager can take it. That's how we do it now, and confirm her role in the community. That goes a long way to setting the stage for your citizens and improving the way you do things.
That's why I think the transition has been difficult somewhat, because not everyone thinks like that. It took me a while to come around to thinking like that. So I think you're right.
Yeah.
All the boards and committees and everything is a little kick. There was a little kickback with everyone, I think, to try to figure out how it was all gonna work.
And looking at the hierarchy here, Vicky came, she was a select board person years ago, so but we're gonna say she's new, under the new regime.
Yeah.
Well, this is the oldest member here, then I'm probably the next one. When you say it's light years and year time, when I came on 3 years ago, I'm sorry, well, go ahead, you start and then come down to me. See how we communicate? And we've talked about it, some of us are self-employed, some are self-employed, some come from business, and the policies, procedures, you're saying that it's just an absolute must. And we have talked about it when I first came on board 3 years ago, looking at things like how do you give raises? How do you give merit raises? It wasn't there. You saw it in the personnel policy. So where we're going is just phenomenal, to say the least. And, it's a team effort, and trying to, the board, I believe, is right on and on board with it. It's the public that questions us, and you can't do anything about that. But having the documentation to back us up is a whole different thing. And then you have it and say, well, we're not making this up. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And if they have an open mind and look at it, then it's, okay. It's not something that you guys talked out on the picnic table about, and you come up with a brainy idea, and this is business, and it's a business.
It is a business. Running a community is a hard business. I'm sorry. Today, it's a hard business, and I give all the five of you credit to the time and the effort you put. I know what it takes to be an elected official. And I think it's harder now than when I was a manager many years ago, because of everything that goes on today in terms of how information flows and where it goes. And and social media. And so,
Can you stop right there? Because there's my next question. I have one question. And because I'm not on the social media sites, the happening, what's really happening, what's the other one that's out there? There's another one out there. I don't know. There's a bunch of them out there. My question to you is, and I didn't see it in here, when you have elected and appointed town employees / volunteers that are on these social medias and they are making disparaging comments about employees, about the town manager, that the town manager signs her name with the last name first, and is there any accountability for those people? The public's gonna be the public. You can't, I know you can't do anything, but is there a responsibility for these people?
Is that in our code of ethics? Did we touch on
Everybody
somewhere?
throws up the First
Social
Amendment.
media.
That's why I question it.
well, you can have, you can have a social
That's what I
media,
thought.
you can have a social media policy for your employees. You can have one. And you don't have to reinvent it. There's a number. I just didn't, but I thought there was something in here, but maybe there isn't. But anyway,
Keyboard warriors anyway.
I know, and I know it's hard to do anything about it, but in the big picture. But when we
But-
talk about trying to run town government, and we would want, it's like where I work. I mean, you say something against the organization in public, yeah, you're gonna hear about it. And if not hear about it, you may be gone.
Yeah, you have to be careful of individuals' rights. I agree 100%. But I think there are some policies out there that Lindsay can get copies of that you can look at and meld them to what you want to do. And there are certain policies about of what's allowed and what isn't allowed, but you do have to be careful. And whatever you do, you probably ought to have your legal counsel look at it, because today it is a very touchy situation. So is there anything in your code of ethics?
There is a blurb for social media. I think it's geared towards, like, when you're representing yourself as a part of the organization. So if you're, speaking on behalf of the town, but you're putting information out there that's disparaging, that's where there's a conflict. Because it is difficult. I mean, you can't really, if somebody's on their own account,
Right.
and it gets blurry too, right? A lot of people will say, well, I'm just saying this as a citizen, but at the same time, they also work for the town government. So it's like, would you have known that information if you didn't work for the town government? And so the line gets really blurry, because saying it as a citizen, doesn't just negate anything. It's, you had to have obtained information, maybe because of your role with town government. And I think we've just run into that a lot. I don't really get into social media battles. I don't even go on there myself. But
Do you have
I
a,
get called, I'm not on.
It's either in our social, in our code of ethics,
it is.
or the, I can't remember which one it's in. But basically, don't go on to your own Facebook or your own platform and say anything about the town. Go to the town manager, and we'll do it on the platform of the town. So we have written that in there. Whether it's,
I'll
we
get,
can make that happen or not.
I'll get you some copies and send it
Please.
to you that you can look at. Again, if you're having the issue, other communities are having the issue, and
Oh, yeah.
don't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
Take what you can get from other communities. But you're right. It's,
I personally think people are gonna do it and say what they will, and just don't get sucked into it. I mean, don't take it so seriously. There's not a problem in the world that was ever solved on Facebook.
I understand. And I don't think it's the problem, and I don't believe it's the discussion, I don't believe it's the subject matter. It's just, you're with an organization, you're with an employer that you should support, and if you don't like it, come to a meeting and go to the town manager.
Right.
We would go to staff meetings if we were in business, hey, come on, let's talk about this. Don't get in there and bash the town manager,
I-
Yeah.
I agree with you to a point. I think there is a difference between private organizations and companies than public entities. Public entities, you're spending the money that comes in from the taxpayers. And so I believe that I think it makes you, myself personally, need to have a higher level of accountability.
I agree with you, but everybody also is a human being and have feelings.
Yeah.
They don't need to be.
I'm not saying
Yeah, I
no,
know.
I think there's a balancing act there.
Exactly.
I think if you're going to do that, put it in your personnel policy, because then it is part of their work arrangement with the town. That's where you need to do it, because they have to follow what's in your personnel policy.
Work arrangement with the town, I like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that is a good idea.
I think it refers to,
So, does that mean we amend the
Code of
personnel
ethics.
policy once?
No, but I think we referred it back in the personnel.
Yeah,
policy.
it's a living document, so you're going to have to
think
change
so,
it
too.
and move it.
Yeah, Thank you on that one.
That's good. That's a good idea.
Want to add one too before we go too far out of the subject. I think there's a difference in this board too. I mean, we're all here because we want to be here. We're not here for an agenda. We all respect each other, and I think that goes far compared to some of the other boards I've seen. And I just to contradict, I don't want to contradict Vic, but the changes happened way before you guys were sworn in June. They were happening way back when she started. That it's just it's been a big progress. And you guys were exposed to it big time when you were brought onto the board, but personally myself, I had seen it way back.
Well, change is difficult. Change is hard. And
The change was good.
well, I didn't say it wasn't good. I was just saying the process of change is difficult, and how you transition to it and how you educate. And not everyone's agreeing, but you need to do the best job you can. And then you have to back it up after you've done it to make sure you continue to do it. So I'll give you all the credit.
Respectful discourse.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And discourse is important today. Discourse and how you do things. To me, it sends a message. What you do sends a message out to the public, sends a message to your employees. And so it's a continual family here that needs to understand relationships and how it all works together. So
I think we're all in agreement that we're all going good steps forward. How do we get them
well,
to bite on to the success we're seeing here?
We have a united front in our communication because of our policy, and we continue
Yep.
to, even if we gotta say the same thing over and over and over again, I don't wanna call it a narrative, because you hear that all the time, but really, what is policy? I mean, it is our.
Right.
And that's gonna make continuity, pretty soon, it'll become the norm,
I-
and it'll get easier.
I have another suggestion I forgot about. One of the things that many communities do, you have many boards, and your planning board, your zoning board are semi-judicial. They have to make decisions that are final for people. And I know when I was in Brunswick, at least every 2 years, at least, and sometimes we did it annually, we'd have our legal counsel come out and have a meeting with those boards and remind them of how they work and what role they have and how they make decisions. And it's not trying to make them make different decisions, but legally, especially the planning board and the zoning boards, there's state laws that talk about what you can do and can't do and how you do that. Many communities do that, and I think you might want to, I don't know if you do it or not, but I think that's something that many communities do. Yes, it's going to cost you a little money. You're going to spend your attorney for an hour or two, but it's money well spent in making sure, again, where I come back to, process is followed, and it's done the same for everybody. And that's a critical aspect of what municipalities do is consistency of what you do and how you do it.
I think that's a good idea too.
So that's something you might want to think about doing. And I'm going to watch you now that you've made me come down here. I'm going to go on and I'm going to watch your meetings on YouTube and see how you've done. I'm coming back in a year and saying, here's your grade. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we're gonna make you come back.
Yeah, yeah. You're going to make me come back and say, look what we did.
Yeah.
Look how we did
So
it.
the first meeting, when you watch the first meeting, you'll probably find me, you'll see me go, well, Dawn said.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
No, I mean,
yeah.
But the fact that you looked at it as a third party, 10,000 foot view, taking a look with your experience, to be able to say the positive things that have happened, that this board has done, started with the board behind it, it's been a process as we were going. That says a lot for me. It says a lot, and we thank you for that.
Well, if I found something different, I would tell you, because you can't improve unless you know where you've made mistakes. And I think you're on again, I'm repeating, you're on the right track. You're getting there. Continue doing it. And again, looking and thinking about what those issues are, how to deal with them, and make sure you have something that. Another thing I forgot to mention, I didn't see anywhere, the only thing I saw was there was something in the charter about agendas. That's the only place I saw something. If you read the one from Raymond and other ones, there's a whole process of format on not just how it's laid out, but how things get on the agenda. And you talk about, I think you have to have something in by a certain time, but is that anybody can put it on? Can a citizen come and do it? Is it all done by the select board? That has been issues in other communities. And I meant to get a policy to show you that, but some lay out a policy and it doesn't have to be 4 pages. It can be 1 page with bullets. Items are on the agenda. Manager can put items on if they're administrative type of things. Council can, or select board can put them on, but they have to be sponsored. So if there's an item on the agenda, people know that it's select board member Picard puts this on. It's the information process again going out. So I'll find some and send them down to you. Again, I don't want to be in a process world, but today when issues rise, if you can get ahead of it, you won't have a problem. And saying that's how we always have done it doesn't work now.
Plus,
So
potentially, the board could change every June.
Right.
So with these processes in place.
that's right.
Yeah.
that-
And that
would
happens.
make continuity.
Yeah.
Too, so
I've
consistency.
talked about, you can back me up on this having a process for this open to the public. And I remember when I first got on, I think people would get up there and they would have that volley like you were talking, and you'd hit the board with, don't know what you're talking about, and then try to answer it, which is dangerous. And when we tried to, we changed it to say, and it sounded terrible, that the board's not going to engage with you. If it's that important, we didn't have the town manager then, but now, get it on the agenda. If it's that important, please go see the town manager, get on the agenda. And that really hasn't caught on. It did a little bit for a few people, and it was great. Then they were heard, and they received answers for them. So I think we need to work on that one.
Well, and I also like the idea of like a catch-all for next meeting, right? To follow up next meeting to say,
That's
hey,
true,
this is
too.
what we heard at the last meeting. We just wanted to address this. And hey, we heard about a personnel concern. Those all go through the town manager.
Yeah.
And just sort of following up each time. So I think that makes people feel more heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was one just recently, that when we came out of executive session really late, and you had put down, and I made the motion, and you said to clarify, under what the person had said, under 4.1.
Yes, yes.
You did it there, but under that type of way, we should go to the next meeting, say, based on what we did this we made the decision, and then it's there. I mean, you did it, and it was
Well,
fine, but saying that to answer those questions
Yeah.
at the next meeting, I think that's the way to do it.
So I don't know, Dawn, if I shared this with you, because it was we were working on it at the time. We were also talking with you, but we did do a select board code of conduct, which covers some of these things, but not all of them. I remember when we talked about it, I was like, I didn't put too much detail into it because I didn't want to, we have a charter, a personnel policy, but I do think it makes sense where like this document's more like, you're not really repeating things, but you're clarifying a process. So maybe we revisit that code of conduct if we want to and clarify some of those things, because there is stuff in there for the agenda, getting things on the agenda, who's responsible, who do you go to?
Did we finalize that or did we put that on hold?
No, we did. We
it.
finalized
And
it.
I'm pretty sure it's posted online.
Was that a code of conduct for the select board?
For the select-
I don't remember seeing it, but maybe I missed
It
it.
was right around the time we were talking, so I don't
Okay.
think,
Well, that's good. You're one step ahead right there if
I mean,
you,
it's
if
not-
you have it.
it's not like this. This has a lot more detail to it, but it does cover a few things like.
Well, and if you can put it on your website, so the public, how do I get things on the agenda? Go look at this document or whatever, frequently asked questions.
I think we
You
did
know,
some of that.
Do that and let people, look through it. And do you, I like that all your agenda and your backup material is public. You put that right out, which is great. Some communities still don't do that. Do you do email blasts to citizens about issues?
Yeah.
And do you send agendas out through an email blast?
They get a link. So it's like if you want, agendas are posted when they're available because the blast goes out a lot sooner than the agenda's available. So they do get a link that they can go right directly to the select board page. All the agendas are there in chronological order.
I saw, that was nice to find all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some communities, not to change it, but some communities have a master list that people say, I want a copy of the agenda, and then you just can send it through a master email list to everybody instead of the citizens having to go looking for it. It's just making it a little easier. Here's the agenda, planning board agendas, select board minutes, ZBA, other of your committees when they meet. And do you post all your minutes? I didn't look at that. All your minutes up on the,
Yeah, so I'm kind of the communications director. So I have to handle all the web updates, all the posts, everything. So I sort of, as it comes to me, I will generate the content for it. But yeah, it's something that,
that's a full-time job.
it is a full-time
It's a
job.
full-time job today. Many communities are going to, I'm not saying you're ready for it, but having someone other than the manager, my words, not yours,
Thank you.
because the manager has many other responsibilities, but have somebody else, part-time person or something, take care of those sort of things. Because that's when you get in trouble, my opinion, when you don't put the information out. It doesn't get out in a timely manner and people can't find it. That,
Communication officer?
So it's something I've learned recently, a lot of towns are doing is like a communications officer or director or something. And it's usually somebody who has they might have a background in understanding like social media platforms and stuff like that. They know, like for instance, Facebook hits your 40s and 60s age group, right? How do you get your 20s and 30s? They're on Instagram.
Lindsay, you're hurting my
TikTok.
feelings.
yeah.
Not everyone, but I'm just saying, like, they understand those
It's gonna be on Yik
dynamics that, and they also will get ahead of stuff. Like, I would love to do more PSAs, like we did about the storm damage.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
hard to get ahead of that because it is a full-time job. It's constant.
Do you have a web page? I didn't look. I mean, a Facebook page.
We do, yeah,
Who takes care of that?
I do. I do all the communications.
Something to look at.
Just,
So, yeah.
there's all kinds of things you need to do, but you have to think about prioritizing them and getting the best bang for your dollar and how you better can communicate with everybody. Comes back to communications again, how you better communicate with everybody. It just works. So anything else I can help you with? I've never been to Lyman before, so thank you. It was nice to be here. I appreciate it. If I can be helpful in the future, let me know. My wife calls me a municipal junkie, so I will tell you that I go on vacation and I'll look at the roads and the sidewalks and see if they're okay. And I enjoyed myself too, but, so I appreciate it and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you very much.
appreciate it.
It's helpful.
I think that, want to take this information and review it and toss it over. Should we talk about it tomorrow at our meeting? Should it be on the agenda? I think following up, probably, while it's still fresh, would be a good idea personally.
No, she didn't say tomorrow.
No, I said our next meeting.
Tomorrow.
I heard.
Oh, I didn't hear tomorrow.
Our next meeting, we have an extra Monday this month. Cut it out.
I know.
Yeah.
Not until next month is our meeting.
I heard.
Okay.
And then,
All right.
I won't be at the next meeting, so I can send notes though before I leave, if you want.
so I am
Next
getting
Monday.
senile.
Next Monday.
Yes, next Monday, the 29th. The 29th, Rusty. That's what I'm gonna talk to Tom about.
Yeah, and find his timeline, I'll base mine on his timeline.
Yeah, and maybe you can, maybe you can't, maybe he has an
When you were
alternative.
in
for us.
Gorham,
Would you go
Don,
for